Big yellow long haul. That's pretty much what this is. Payload is something special, to be sure, but in the end, it's just big yellow long haul. Hunt for the Decepticons, which isn't actually the Toyline's name. That was just the promotion attached to the line. It's just Transformers 2010, or in Japan, it got named Autobot Alliance. So technically, Hunt for the Decepticons is actually called Autobot Alliance. But my favorite Transformers toy line ever made, regardless. Like, my number one on the list, Hunt for the Decepticons, Revenge of the Fallen, Dark of the Moon, Cybertron, Energon Armada. Those are my top 6. But yeah, Hunt for the Decepticons, well, Autobot Alliance actually, is my favorite toy line ever made. Like, ever. I know a bunch of the newer generation of fans will immediately look at this and go, oh, the Studio Series one is better because it's more accurate. And to its credit, it is way more accurate than this old figure here. And it also does the combined mode, so that's a big plus. However, the old mold definitely stands up to the test of time much better. It's also more posable, surprisingly, and it's more stable and fun to transform. I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, you just hate the new toys. And yeah, no, I don't. I love what they make now. It's just sometimes it's hit or miss, and long haul was a big miss in a lot of areas for me. But actual Payload here is wonderful, but skinny. The on-screen model was a super buff, like big gnarly dude, and this doesn't really capture that. Sure, it's big and bulky enough, but the legs don't convey that same gravitas as the new one does. But the old one is so much fucking bigger. Like, it's bigger than most leaders nowadays. Man, I miss that. Payload also suffers from something I'm very happy doesn't exist anymore. I don't know why it took so long for them to stop doing this, but gorilla arms is one of my least favorite things on a toy. This shit drove me nuts back in the day, where the arms move as they would normally, but the wrists are stuck in this position, making it look like a gorilla. All they would have to do is add a wrist swivel or mold the hands differently, but nah, they gave gorilla arms to a lot of things. Most bumblebees that came up from the movies had gorilla arms. This trope didn't go away till like Age of Extinction, and it made a lot of figures, a lot of really good figures, fall just short of being amazing. It's a shame that they had to stick to gorilla arms for so long, and now I don't even think I've seen a toy since Age of Extinction that has gorilla arms. This guy, though, otherwise is pretty sick. So there was Mechalive back in the day, which moved internal details when you moved bits of the robot, and the long haul / payload mold had quite a bit. When you move the heels, the little springs inside go up and down. They're fake springs, but it's still really cool. There were working pistons in the elbow, which is a really nice detail. I love seeing working pistons on a Transformers toy. And the gear in the chest moved when you turned the head, and I love that little bit of interactivity with these toys. It's another reason why I like the Revenge of the Fallen / Hunt for the Decepticons toy line. I enjoyed Mechalive. When comparing this to the new one, they both have pull over each other. One looks way more screen accurate, while the other is more fun to handle. Studio Series is made for display, whereas Hunt for the Decepticons is made more for play. So it depends on what you want to buy a long haul for. But looking at these two next to each other, all forms of intimidation that the Studio Series one have in its design are just gone when you put it next to the old one, because the old one towers over this, and they both cost relatively the same price. Like, even nowadays, I paid $40 for this Payload, and I paid $40, well, the equivalent of $40 for Studio Series Long Haul. I bought the box set, but you divide it. I love how scattered all the paint and color details are on this guy too. It helps keep him from being just another boring, realistic dump truck man, and it's super nice. There are buttons on the side of the arm kibble where you can press, and bam, arm blades. Also, on a side note, as I was writing the script, I typed in the word bam there, and a huge sheet of ice slid off the roof and smashed into the ground and scared the shit out of me in the window next to me. But cool arm blades. Robot is definitely a winner in my book. It's super solid, looks great. Yeah, it's not screen accurate, and that's a bit meh, but for the most part, it's made really well. However, mine does have the long haul waist issue where it would just untab sometimes. They fixed that on later versions of Payload, but I got one of the figures that just didn't have the fix. Easy fix to do though, I'm not that bothered by it. Posing is pretty good. No waist swivel or wrist swivel, but that wasn't the main focus at the time, so I give it a pass. If it was made today though, then yeah, it would be a complaint I'd have, but you don't buy this guy for its hyperposability. I mean, you don't even buy Studio Series Long Haul for its hyperposability. It cannot stand up. Like, that's the failure in my book. It just has enough to get by, but if you really want something extremely posable, then Devil Savior, maybe? I don't know, their long haul seems to be okay, from what I've seen. Transformation is really clever. You realize why the legs are so skinny, and it's because the way that they fold up into the front of the truck, and the way the arms fold back to make the bucket is pretty sick. I love the way that this guy just compacts. It's really cool. I also love the way the dump truck looks. Now, just to put this into perspective of how big this thing is in real life, look at this picture and I never want to stand next to one of these things. It is one of the scariest vehicles ever, and it's a friggin' dump truck. The coloring is very realistic, but the thing that gets me really happy the most is the actually good weathering on the sides of the dump truck. Get that weird ass box set Studio Series paint out of here. This is amazing. It's so subtle yet so prominent at the same time. It's how Siege schmutz should have been done. There's a lot of S's in that sentence, but it's how the Siege ones should have been done. But it's done so well here. It looks like the bucket's been used. I do wish that paint detail was on more of the vehicle though, because it kind of just stops there, but it's still nice that they included it. But what I think is the best part about this entire vehicle mode is the fact that the bucket does in fact tip, and the pistons move and help hold the entire thing up. That's such an awesome gimmick to have on a toy like this. It does have two issues though. Number one, the hands are just kind of hanging out there, but the Studio Series one has it even worse and doesn't tip the bucket. And two, the wheels on my copy, probably due to age, don't stay tabbed in when I push the bucket down again, but holding them when you push the bucket down works fine. I just love the fact that you can actually tip the dump truck. That is just an amazing feature to have added into an already complex figure, and it doesn't ruin the complexity and make it annoying. It still makes the transformation fun. Take notes, Takara, when you make your masterpiece Transformers. Interactivity and a good transformation can both go together. It's an excellent dump truck mode. In my opinion, it's the best official one we've ever gotten from Hashtag. The robot just compacts so well into the shape and mass shifts so much. It's so impressive that that massive robot can just fold up and fit into this tiny dump truck. Like, just well done to the designer. Like, well done. Yeah, the toy still has its issues. The gorilla arms, the waist, the skinniness, the untabbing wheels. But there are a lot of great things here, too, to make those problems kind of seem small in the grand scheme of things along this figure. Minus those stupid gorilla arms. I hate gorilla arms. But should you buy one? Well, if you're the kind of person who just collects for accuracy and nothing else, then yeah, get the Studio Series one over this. But if you want something solid, sturdy, fun to mess with, and don't really care about the combiner or accuracy, then I would suggest getting any version of this mold because it's brilliant. Not saying the Studio Series one is complete garbage. It's not. It's great. My copy has not withstood the test of time because it's been afoot ever since I finished making that video. And as a figure that should survive being in a combined form, I don't think they did a very good job with it in that regard, and that's deteriorating the figure. I'm not going to display it in robot mode. I'm going to keep it displayed in foot mode because I've got all the upgrade kit parts on Devastator. But that is something that Takara and Hasbro really should have looked at, is the longevity of this figure while it's in combine mode. And because it's in combine mode all the time, the individual robot, because of the stress and strain, has ruined it. So that is something I do want you guys to watch out for if you haven't bought Long Haul yet and plan on completing Devastator. Keep that in mind. That is why mine isn't solid anymore, is because it's sat in foot mode forever. This figure, on the other hand, doesn't have a foot mode, so it doesn't have to worry about that. So it's just completely fine and just works like a charm. And I love, this is one of my top 10 favorite toys of all time. I definitely recommend buying a version of this mold if you can. So that's been my look at Hunt for the Decepticons. Autobot Alliance Payload. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.